know, when the teacher was there following the ground, the devotees could see him. But when he wasn't there, they could see him even more.
Thank you. Anyone else remember something? Mohan?
You're talking about the rain.
Whether it was going to continue or not. And did it, qualities and so forth, can talk with the deity. To an ordinary person, however, the deity will appear to an ordinary person, however. Good point. To an ordinary person, the deity will appear to be made of stone, wood, or some other material. In the higher sense, since all material elements ultimately emanate from the supreme spiritual entity, nothing is really material, meaning everything is ultimately spiritual. It's a good point, another good point. Maybe we need an electrical engineer instead of a structural engineer. Being omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, being that he knows everything, he's everywhere, and is in every place, Krishna can deal with his devotee in any form without difficulty. By the mercy of the Lord, the devotee knows perfectly well about the Lord's dealings. Indeed, he can talk face to face with the Lord. Now, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? First, it's nice that you are thinking first about what you think about it. But what do you think about this?
The deity can speak face to face.
The deity can do that. Yes. Caitanya?
I think that's really true because I live alone and I've got lots of pictures of Krishna all around the walls.
And you talk to them and they talk to you. I'm sure.
Hopefully.
That's good. You have quite a thing going in your house. Sounds like never a dull moment. Anyone else? Basmohan, what do you think about that?
I was going to say it'd be very amazing description how they can talk to the Lord face to face.
Yeah. What do you think about that? It's amazing. And what do you mean by amazing?
It's very special.
Yeah. And that also means, Prabhu, please take a minute. That also, no one should sit on the floor directly, it's too cold. Are you okay? Sitting on there? So that means if nothing is material at all, and Krishna's there, that at any time, in any place, whether you're in the temple or not, and Krishna's in your heart, he can talk to you and give you instructions. So a devotee has a special facility that he's living as Prabhupada explains in one of his purports in the Bhagavad Gita, even though we say bad things about the material world, it is dukkhalayam shashvatam, it's a miserable place and it's temporary and one can't be happy here. But yet for a devotee, he doesn't live in that aspect of the material world, because one's consciousness determines what aspect of the material world you live in. And you feel comfortable in. I've had the experience walking down the street and passing. In the United States, you'd call it a bar. Here, you'd call it a pub. And the music would be blaring, and people would be in there, and people would be drinking and laughing and whatever, fighting or whatever they do. And the atmosphere was like, I just remember experiencing, it was like ignorance was pouring out the door. And it was such the smell, the sounds, everything was just so counter to what, to the world, to the universe, to the consciousness that a devotee lives in. So a devotee, not that I'm a devotee, but even the little bit of devotion I had, this was just, it wasn't appealing, it wasn't attractive, it wasn't a universe that I wanted to live in. But for a devotee, he lives always in the mercy of the Lord. That's what Prabhupada says in one of his purports in the Bhagavad Gita. He lives in the mercy of the Lord because he can see Krishna's benevolent kindness at every step. And Prabhupada said that. And he had different moods. At times he would say that one time he was walking by the Victoria Memorial in Calcutta. Any of you have ever seen the Victoria Memorial in Calcutta? Yes.
I don't think so.
Well, next time you're in Calcutta, it's a good place to visit. And Prabhupada, when he was young, they were just building it. And there was scaffolding around it. And he said, he was on a morning walk with the devotees. And he said, when I was young, I climbed up that scaffolding to the top. So one of the devotees said, you must have been very brave. And Prabhupada replied, I still am brave. Otherwise, how could I have come to the West alone? With no support, an elderly gentleman, knowing not one person, practically speaking, no finances, nothing. But he said at that time, how could I have come alone? But at a different time, he said, I'm never alone. I always feel the presence of my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And yeah, never was alone. So what a relief. What a relief. Because one of the primal fears of a soul, a human soul in a human body in this world is, there are two primal fears. They're fears. These are subdivision of fears. One is being abandoned, and the other is being overwhelmed by circumstance. And there I am all alone and overwhelmed. And being abandoned and left all alone. But there's another saying that the best cure for loneliness is solitude. Because in solitude, the mind can become more quiet and one can experience Krishna's presence. So then one understands that you're not alone. So that's really the only cure for loneliness, is to understand that actually it's an illusion that you're alone, that Krishna is always with you, Savasya Chaham Hriday Sanavista, and he's supporting you at every moment, even when you're not conscious of him. And the simplest explanations of this, the simplest access into this type of an understanding is that who is making your heart beat, who's telling you now it's time to breathe. Just imagine if you were in charge of your heartbeat and you're breathing and you get distracted or something like that, or we're all a little bit, as we say in ISKCON, spaced out. So I forgot to breathe, and then what would happen? Well, then when you're young, just imagine how intolerable it would be to be very young, because your mother would always be telling you to breathe, now breathe, now breathe, now breathe. Mother, please. So it's Krishna who's maintaining us. So these are the simple, like even the greatest scientists can't understand how food becomes digested and enters turns into energy. Is turned into energy and ingested, absorbed by the cells. Even no one can understand this actually, and how it's all working. So these are indirect understandings that help our intelligence accept that actually we're not alone, and Krishna is there, and not only is he there, he's everywhere. Not only is he everywhere, and that's the pastime of Lord Nrsingadev really shows that. That's one of the main philosophical points from the pastime of Lord Nrsingadev's appearance, because Hiranyakashipu said to Prahlad, he asked him a question, he was so upset that he said, "You're worshipping a god other than me," because his demonic desire was to be the central in the universe, and he was so powerful that he was making things work in the universe and going around the system, Krishna system of the devatas. So he was so upset that Prahlad not only was not worshipping him, and all the devatas were even forced to worship him, all the demigods were forced to worship Hiranyakashipu, but Hiranyakashipu was so upset that Prahlad was not bluffed by Hiranyakashipu's power, the powers that he did have, to think that he was the greatest, that he was worthy of all adoration. Prahlad, on the other hand, was worshipping Krishna. And not only was he worshipping Krishna, he was powerful. And not only was he powerful, he was so powerful that he was fearless. So this challenged Hiranyakashipu's self-confidence, so to speak, because we see so many self-confident people in this world, but actually they're not self-confident. They're bluffing, basically, because no one is self-confident in this world, because everyone is tiny and insignificant, and the world isn't in our control. You can only be self-confident, really confident, if you're controlling everything, which is what the most powerful people in this world try to do. They try to control as much as they can by virtue of their... I'll give you a hint, it's not their bodily strength.
Money.
It's their money, because money is Shakti, money is power. With money you can purchase strong people, and intelligent people, and beautiful people. So Hiranyakashipu was fearful. Even though he could control so much, he couldn't control Prahlad. So he challenged Prahlad. And he said, "You say that there is a God greater than you," but he was fearful inside. "You say there's a God greater than you and he's everywhere." And he pulled out his sword and he said, "Before I kill you, and you say that he's going to protect you, before I kill you, I'm going to smash him with my fist. Where is he? You say he's everywhere. Where is he? Is he in this pillar?" And he pointed to the pillar. And Prahlad looked and said, "Yes." And our acharyas say that Nrsingadev peeked out of the pillar at that time just to assure him, "Don't worry, I'm here." And then Hiranyakashipu in fury said, "Before I kill you, I'm going to smash that pillar with my fist." And we all know what happened next. That Nrsingadev came out and destroyed, killed, giving him the greatest fortune. But he showed by this by this lila, by this pastime, that although he's everywhere, he's also somewhere. He's everywhere personally. So how is it possible to be a person? How is it possible for a person to be everywhere personally? Because in form. So materially it's not possible, because a form has an ending to it. It has a beginning and an end. There's a place, otherwise if it doesn't have an ending, it's unlimited in its form, and then you can't see it. Because it's everywhere, it doesn't have a boundary. That's the word I was looking for. So form implies boundary, where it begins and where it ends. Otherwise it's formless. But Krishna can be everywhere and still in form. So, as Srila Jiva Goswami has said, that unless you accept the Achintya Shakti, the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord, that he's not limited to our finite intelligence that we can calculate. Well, how can anyone be formless with form and everywhere? That doesn't make any sense to me. But to our limited intelligence, it certainly doesn't make sense. But that doesn't mean that Krishna is limited by our limited intelligence. So, the deity had said to the Brahmana, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way I shall go with you. The Lord continued. He had more instructions on how he was going to do it. Do not try to see me by turning around. Now, why is he saying that? Because what would we naturally want to do? You say you're following me, I'm not quite sure about that. You're going to really do it, or you're really not going to do it? Do you actually have the ability? No, the Lord said you're going to have to trust. After all, I'm a deity and I'm talking to you, so you might as well have to trust me. So he said, do not try and see me by turning around. As soon as you see me, I shall remain stationary in that very place. I'm going to stop. You will know that I'm walking behind you by the sound of my ankle bells. Cook 1 kilo of rice daily and offer it. I shall eat that rice and follow behind you. So it doesn't describe if he had to look at the deity when he was offering it, or it doesn't say that. I won't venture a guess even. You may if you like, but he said, I'll eat that rice and follow behind you. And this way he would get the remnants, perhaps. The next day, the Brahmana begged permission from Gopal. Now I'm going to leave. I'm going to walk to Vidyanagara. I have to save the old Brahmana's religious principles. So you please come. My dear Gopal, I'm leaving now. So he begged permission from Gopal and started for his country. Gopal followed him step by step. I hear some steps. And I see an ant. Oh, it's Jagatarani Mataji. It's not Gopal. Gopal, are you going to try and get over?
No. Gopal could do that.
Gopal followed him step by step. Well, Gopal followed the young Brahmana. The tinkling sound of his ankle bells could be heard, and the Brahmana became very pleased, and he cooked first-class rice for Gopal to eat. Now one may ask the question, where did the rice come from? And where did the stove come from to cook it?
It's probably Gopal.
But one may answer it. Yes, go ahead.
Probably because since he's the Lord, Gopal could just make them.
Well, that's just like we think it's our work that makes our food appear. but it's not quite like that, because there's lots of people who work and work and work, and food doesn't appear just like that. For some people, millions of dollars appear as a result of our work, and some people nothing appears. So although we're required to do something, but it's not exactly our work that makes the results happen. And this one point, if it was understood in the world, the whole consciousness of the world would change. Because it's very arrogant to think that by my work, the result is coming. And we see this, that happens so often. Someone works very hard and some fame comes. And then something happens and they lose everything. A fall from grace, so to speak. At one point, everything in their life goes right, and then that period ends. That period of specifically good karma, and it ends. And then they have nothing. And people respect them so much while they're successful, and as soon as they're not successful, no one will talk to them. They're afraid that it's catching or something. The lack of success. They might catch it like the common cold, or we won't mention that other C word. But he walked and walked and walked and walked, and he eventually arrived in his own country. His own country meaning in South India, walking from North India, Vrindavan. And he began to think as follows when he entered his own area. I have now come to my village, and I shall go to my home and tell all the people that the witness has arrived. Because remember, this whole event is orchestrated around this older Brahmana promising in front of the deity, Gopal, to give his daughter to the younger Brahmin who had served him. So in one mood he was so exuberant, spiritually exuberant, he wanted to give the boy, he just was giving it. When one is happy, one wants to give. When one is unhappy, one wants to take only. That's actually a symptom of unhappiness, because one's heart closes and one doesn't feel satisfaction, so one thinks, well, the more I get, the more selfish I get, basically, then that will fill up the emptiness in my heart. But the emptiness in the heart doesn't have anything to do with filling it with material things. 2 coughs of confirmation. The emptiness in the heart. Otherwise, the person who owned Kmart or something like that, he could put all the things in all the stores in his heart, and still he wouldn't be happy. Or all the land, the person who buys more and more land to get more and more and to get more power. And there's always an enemy there who has a little bit more than you, or is threatening you. So it's a frightening situation. And another thing about the more and more and more you have, what else happens with all your friends? Yeah, they're what?
Envy.
Yeah, well, just everyone smiles at you. And one of the most strange things about when you're very wealthy, wherever you go, people pay for everything. You don't have to worry about where to stay or your food or something. Let me get you this and let you get that. And everyone smiles at you and is friendly to you. But no one rather is thinking of you and your interest, or rather it's a very, very rare person like your mother or something like that who's thinking about you, or some of your mothers thinking about you and only thinking about you and your welfare and whether you're well fed and things like that. Everyone else is nice, but it's business, it's on their mind. And in business, you have to always try to get more than you give. That's the rule of business. You don't stay in business if you give more than you get in return. So you don't have any friends, practically speaking. or you don't know who to trust and who not to trust. So it's a very precarious position in this material world, and the person who is really safe is not an anxiety. It's either the complete fool or the exalted devotee who understands himself under the protection of the Supreme Lord. So he thought, I have now come to my village. And the deity, every day he had heard the tinkling of the ankle bells behind him, and every day he offered rice to Gopal, and then next day he began again, walking and walking, and eventually he got to his destination, even though it was so far away from North India to Vidyanagar, around that area. It's very far. I don't know how far, but it's very far. I don't know how many hours by train it would be, but it's very far. So, in a similar way, our journey to Krishna maybe seems so far. Now, if you were in Vrindavan and thinking, I'm going to walk to South India, which is to Vidyanagar, anyone know how far it is? You're from that place near?
Maybe around 2,000 plus
kilometers. Yeah. So if you were deciding I'm going to walk the 2,000 miles, how far is it across Australia in kilometers?
3,500.
3,500. You know, you'd think, do I really want to do this? Before you just started walking, can I do it? Do I have the capacity? What could possibly happen to me? I won't get rice, I won't get a fire. But if we take our steps every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, we eventually get there, amazingly enough. And we have so many experiences perhaps on the way, and some of them are seemingly unfavorable, and others are seemingly very favorable. But we just keep going, because we want to get to Vidyanagar. So that's what, the stronger the goal is burning in the heart, the more courage and strength we have, because basically speaking, we don't have any choice, because I want to go to Vidyanagar. And one thing about what the kindness of Prabhupada is so we don't have to walk alone. Sometimes we have to some degree, but or everyone has to some degree, but we don't have to walk alone. And if we tell each other very nice, encouraging stories along the way, or the stories of our life, etc., and speak about relevant, important things, then the journey can pass quite quickly. And we can look at as we're walking on our journey, we can see the wonderful, amazing creations of Krishna along the way, and see Krishna in all things along the way. Then the journey actually goes quite quickly. And I'm really turning this into a big metaphor, but in certain ways, even though we don't see Krishna behind us, we can't turn and see him, but we hear the tinkling of his ankle bells in different ways. He gives us certain indications through others, through or personally a tap on our shoulder. He just lets us know that he's there. And even though we may only find out that he may only let us know that he's there, not like Caitanya was always talking to her, all her pictures, and they're always talking back to her. But But if he's there sometimes along the journey, if he's walked that far to tell us every now and then he's there, that means he's there all the time. He just lets us know in very subjective ways. I won't ask if you've had that experience, raise your hand, because no one wants to raise their hand on something like that. But Krishna is very, very kind in that way, despite our lack in so many ways, lack of devotion, lack of faith, and despite our selfishness, etc. But Krishna is very kind along the way. And he acts through devotees very much. And he acts through giving us service very much. And the Brahmin thought, I shall go to my home and tell all the people that the witness has arrived. The Brahmana then began to think that if the people didn't directly see the Gopal deity, they would not believe that he had arrived, that the deity had arrived, because that was the agreement, and they put it in writing. But even if Gopal stays here, he thought, there is still nothing to fear. Now, who can explain that? Even if he stays here, he wasn't quite in his village yet. He was outside the village. Why do you think he looked? He decided to look then. I'll ask others too. What do you think?
Maybe you wanted reassurance.
Well, he's already walked to Vidyanagar, basically. It's like 2,000 kilometers. There's no direct answer here, but...
He probably might have thought that they could build a temple there if he did something there.
Yeah. Thought like that. What else? What do you think?
I think he was impatient to take darshan.
I think, after all, he's like controlled himself completely, walking for 2,000 miles. Okay, and then, I can't stop here because then they'll say he didn't come to the village, something like that. But this is close enough. I'm going to look and let them come here to see Gopal. Do you want to speak? Are you sure? Yes, something very... Yes, go ahead.
Well, I think he turned around because Google had said that by the sound of the anchor bells that he would know that Google was far away.
Yes.
But maybe there might have been some roots or something stuck to the side.
It could be. Could be that something got stuck and he wasn't sure. But he said, I'll go to my home and tell all the people that the witness has arrived. The Brahmana then began to think if the people didn't directly see the Gopal deity, they would not believe that he had arrived. But even if Gopal stays here, he thought, there is still nothing to fear, because the people would come to see him. And in a sense, that's more appropriate, that they come and see Gopal rather than Gopal has to go all the way to see them. Thinking this, the Brahmana turned to look back, and he saw that that Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was standing there, smiling. The Lord told the Brahmana, now you can go home. I shall stay here and shall not leave. So there's one other reason why he looked, turned around then. And that other reason is that he was inspired to do that by Gopal. Gopal said, okay, this is enough, I'll stop here. So he inspired the younger Brahmana to, now is the time to turn around, and then Gopal said, okay, you can go on, and I'm going to stay here. The young Brahmana then went to the town, and he informed all the people about Gopal's arrival. In hearing this, the people were struck with wonder. Now, they could have thought that maybe he's done this dishonestly. He could have put him, air freighted him. They could have put him on a train or what are those trucks, goods vehicle, or a lorry or something like that. And they could have, but why couldn't they have said that? or thought that.
There was nothing like that at that time.
Yes, there was nothing like that there, and he hired 200 people to carry the deity to walk from. And how would you do that? How would you do that? You know, they wouldn't let you take the deity from Vrindavan. And if you tried to do it, they'd give you lots of trouble.
How would you be able to take the deity out of the temple?
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
would let you carry the deity out?
And how would you carry the deity? It's huge.
What about the devotees left at the temple? Did they not realize Gopal was gone?
It's always in life. Someone is smiling and someone is crying. And we don't know when our turn is for either one. Hearing this, the people were struck with wonder. And all the townspeople went to see the witness Gopal. And when they saw the Lord actually standing there, they all offered their respectful obeisances. When the people arrived, they were very pleased to see the beauty of Gopal. Gopal Sundar Jadeki Loki Anandita. They were feeling ecstatic to see Gopal's beauty. And when they heard that he had actually walked there, Vishmita. What does that mean? Anyone? They were filled with wonder. They were surprised. Shunina Vishmita Pratima Chalina Oile. When they heard that he had actually walked there and there was no other possible way that he could have gotten there, they were surprised. They were astonished. Then the elderly Brahmana, being very pleased, came forward and immediately fell like a stick in front of Gopal. Thus, in the presence of all the townspeople, Lord Gopal bore witness that the elderly Brahmana had offered his daughter in charity to the young Brahmana. Now there's a next interaction between Lord Gopal and the Brahmana, the two Brahmanas, the elderly and the younger Brahmanas. And then that next interaction will give a missing piece in this. Why did this is a marriage ceremony? Like in marriage season, you can go to 6 marriage ceremonies a day in India. Is it like that in Punjab? It's like that in Bombay.
Every Sunday, yeah.
Huh?
Every Sunday in Punjab, yes.
Yes. The 6 minimum. Something like that. So, but why did he go? Why do we go to those? You have to, for some reason. But why did Gopal go? He's going to explain why in the next verse. I'll read the verse. Maybe the next 2. And then it'll be over, or 3 or 4. But then next week we'll read the purport. After the marriage ceremony was performed, the Lord informed both Brahmanas, "You 2 Brahmanas are my eternal servants, birth after birth." So this is something so wonderful, how the devotees serve the Lord, but he's not a dictator who sits upon his throne and says, if you serve me, you'll be happy, and if you don't serve me, you're going to be miserable, I'm going to throw lightning bolts at you, etc. No, he serves his devotees. Atma Prajanta Vedanyata Bhakti Vatsalya. This is the most startling quality of the Lord, that he loves to serve his devotees. But there's a wonderful purport that we won't read now, but we'll read it next week, Krishna willing. And the Lord continued, "I have been very much pleased by the truthfulness of you both. Now you can ask for a benediction." Thus, with great pleasure, the 2 Brahmanas begged for a benediction. What do you find interesting about that?
deity to stay there with them.
But what do you find interesting about have become very much pleased by the truthfulness of you both? Now you can ask for a benediction.
Because they had done.
But what do you find interesting about that?
Well, it's interesting that like after they had gotten there and after the young Brahmana had turned around and looked, that it triggered the benediction.
Yes.
And when the older Brahmana had not said anything.
Yeah. What do you find interesting? Anyone like to say?
It's interesting that he chose to glorify the truthfulness, even though the older Brahmana hadn't.
Okay, I say there's two even those. So you say that one? Say the one you were going to say?
That the older Brahmana wasn't so truthful.
He wasn't so truthful.
But the Lord still glorifies his truthfulness.
So what do you get from that? So why did he do that?
I don't know, I was wondering.
Yeah. Anyone find that interesting also? Because it wasn't that both of them were completely, it seemed. Anyone like to? What do you think, Gopal?
Not sure.
But see how Krishna appreciated it. That's interesting. He was stuck in a way.
The Lord's impartial, so even though one was dishonest.
He wasn't quite dishonest. He was, because it also says, right before there, it says that the elderly Brahmana, being very pleased, came forward and immediately fell down like a stick in front of Gopal. It wasn't that, oh no, he's come as a witness and now that proves that I wasn't being honest and also fully honest, and it proves that, and now I'm going to have to give my daughter in charity. No, he was pleased. He was pleased. And if you remember the earlier part of the pastime, he wanted to do it. He wanted to keep his word. He very much wanted to. But he was in a very difficult situation. If he had done it, his relatives said that they would kill themselves. So it was difficult. So Krishna saw the goodness in it, which is very reassuring. That he really didn't want to do it, to tell a half-truth, say. And Krishna saw that. So that's quite reassuring, isn't it? Saw the intention. Very reassuring. And what other little instruction is there? That Krishna, what did he say? As you pointed it out. He was pleased by his truthfulness. Of all the different things he was pleased by. Of you both. So that gives us something to consider in our own lives, that it's good to be truthful. That's very Brahminical. It's born out of the mode of goodness. There are points balancing that, but a general principle.
Because the older Brahmin was also considering the necessity of the care of the rest of the people involved. So he was being truthful in this context. If he was being truthful like we think of truthful, he would have just pushed forward.
I've given my daughter, you can all kill yourselves, I don't care at all. What do I care? I have to be truthful. You want some poison? I have some in my room.
I think it was a bluff anyway.
You mean they weren't truthful?
They weren't going to kill them.
Oh, if you do this, I'm going to kill myself. I call you bluff. Can't do it, see if I care. But the people are more cultured than that. You can't do that when So even
The
and
application.
and then yes, but the point is that Krishna, as a general principle, he's appreciating the truthfulness. So that means that we should also appreciate the importance of truthfulness. Although that isn't the highest principle, because Krishna even broke his promise to protect his devotee Bhishma Dev. And so that's not the highest principle, but yet the devotees generally do act in the mode of goodness, Prabhupada told me, and that's an important principle.
What do you do if you're a shopkeeper?
Huh?
You're a businessman.
Everyone knows what you're going to do. You're going to lie. But it's still, there's reactions for that. So you purify yourself by understanding that this is like that. You have to remove the dosha, the fault, from the activity by making sure that the owner of the business gets the profit. And you have to know who the owner of the business is. Then Prabhupada also told the story in one of his early little books about there was a thief who went on pilgrimage with a group of devotees. He didn't say where he went, but he went on pilgrimage. And then everyone has their belongings. You know the story? So everyone carries some belongings with them. So the next morning, after one of the mornings, they woke up and they couldn't find their bag, but they found someone else's bag near where they had put their bag, and each person found another person's bag where they had put their bag. So initially there was confusion, and they thought that their bag was stolen, but then they just found that it was somewhere else, and they couldn't figure out what in the world had happened. And then one person said, "I've done it." He admitted, I've done it. I hate to tell you this, but I'm a thief. I'm on pilgrimage, so I understand that I shouldn't steal anything. But yet I'm a thief, so I have to do something according to my nature. So this was the best I could do. I just moved your things. I stole it from here, but put it over there. I stole that one and put it over here. I stole that one and put it over there. Please excuse me. I did the best I could. Okay, thank you. We'll end here. And then next week we'll read that very important purport of Prabhupada's, but the pastime is... Oh no, it's almost over, but not... So they asked the benediction, and someone said what the benediction would be. I heard someone said it before. Please remain here, so that people all over the world will know how merciful you are to your servants. Kinkarera, your servants. Lord Gopal stayed, and the two brahmanas engaged in his service. And after hearing of the incidents, many people from different countries began to come to see Gopal. And there's more, but let's see. Yeah, we might be able to finish next week. Might. Nope. Any questions or comments? What do you think of this pastime?
So mention this.
Louder.
The actual marvel deity was the Krishna origin.
And then became the deity? It doesn't say, but it was Krishna who walked, and Krishna was the deity. So then the question, we spoke about this right at the beginning, he wasn't looking, didn't turn around and look, but did the people who were on the road that he passed while he was walking, did they see this young brahmana walking and behind him this huge marble deity? I would venture not. I can't say for sure, but maybe they couldn't see him because they didn't have the eyes to see him, or who knows what. But he heard his ankle bells continuously, so we can assume that he was walking. Any questions or comments? Yes, what is your question? Muralidhar.
No question.
Huh?
I have no question. I just had one comment,
Okay.
one thought about that last sentence which you read about saying that the truthfulness of the second part of the sentence about asking for a benediction. I thought the Lord coming there itself is the biggest benediction, so what further benediction could we ask for that?
Yes. That he stay. Make sure you don't have a return ticket.
But Allah had already said that once I'm stuck, I will not leave.
Yeah, well, just make sure that, yeah, correct. Okay, we'll end here. Thank you very much. No more rain. I guess.